During the late 21st century BC, ancient Mesopotamia was a land soaked in blood, ambition, and the eternal hunger for power as city-states constantly battled each other for control of the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. And out of this chaos rose a man whose name would echo through time: Sargon of Akkad, the first emperor in recorded history, a figure who not only forged an empire but also shaped the structure of future civilizations, establishing a model of centralized governance, military strategy, and imperial dominance that would influence rulers for millennia to come. Sargon's story begins not in a palace but in obscurity. Born the illegitimate son of a priestess of the Sumerian goddess of love and an unknown father, in the humble village of Azapiranu, and due to the shame or danger surrounding his birth, his mother placed him in a reed basket and sent him floating down the Euphrates River, unknowingly mirroring the later biblical story of Moses. He was discovered by Aki, a royal gardener for the king of Kish, Ur-Zababa, who adopted the child and raised him within the court's periphery, where Sargon's natural intelligence, strength, and charisma would eventually grant him the position of cupbearer to the king, a role of immense trust and prestige given the constant threat of assassination by poison, and one which brought him closer to the inner circles of royal power. However, the tides of fortune were turning across Sumer as Lugal-Zagassi, the ambitious king of Umma, was on a violent campaign to conquer the fragmented city-states of Sumer, successfully unifying many under his brutal rule and eventually turning his attention to Kish, the very city where Sargon resided. King Ur-Zababa, fearing defeat, sent Sargon to negotiate peace, but Lugal-Zagassi, impressed by Sargon's presence and perhaps already sensing his potential, instead invited him to join forces and promised power in exchange for loyalty, a tempting offer which Sargon accepted, leading to the betrayal and collapse of Kish as Ur-Zababa fled into hiding. Sargon rose in prominence under Lugal-Zagassi's shadow, but the alliance was doomed from the start, as both men hungered for dominance, and according to legend, Sargon may have seduced Lugal-Zagassi's wife, an act that destroyed whatever bond remained between them and ignited a bitter rivalry that ended in open war. In the decisive battle that followed, Sargon's superior strategy and force overwhelmed Lugal-Zagassi's army, and the defeated king was paraded in chains through the streets of Nippur, humiliated before the gods, and later tortured and executed, as Sargon declared himself king of Kish and began the real work of building an empire unlike anything the world had ever seen. With Lugal-Zagassi's previous conquests now in his hands, Sargon inherited a partially unified Sumer, giving him the advantage to extend his dominion rapidly across Mesopotamia, pushing north into Assyria and eastward into Elam, consolidating city after city through relentless campaigns, establishing himself as a ruler not just by divine right but through the sheer force of will, strategy, and brutal efficiency. He founded the city of Akkad, which became the glittering capital of his empire, a city whose exact location remains a mystery even today but which held the administrative, military, and cultural heart of his reign. And he also established Babylon, which centuries later under Hammurabi would become one of the greatest cities in human history. Sargon revolutionized military organization by maintaining a standing army of 5,400 men, a full-time professional force that allowed rapid deployment and control across his vast lands, and he employed new tactics such as the Phalanx formation, a disciplined line of spear-wielding soldiers protected by massive shields, a strategy that would later be perfected by the likes of Alexander the Great, 2,000 years into the future. He introduced powerful new weaponry like the composite bow, constructed from wood, horn, and animal sinew, giving it the ability to fire arrows at double the range and triple the force of ordinary bows, a technological edge that led him to win 34 battles during his lifetime, spreading fear and submission in equal measure. But Sargon was not just a warrior. He was a political mastermind, reshaping Mesopotamia into a centralized imperial machine by appointing loyal governors to oversee more than 65 cities, ensuring direct control through administrative networks, and perhaps most significantly, he appointed his daughter Enheduanna as high priestess of the moon god Nana in Ur, giving him religious legitimacy and influence over the priesthood, as Enheduanna herself became the first named author in recorded history, writing hymns and religious texts that helped solidify the spiritual authority of the Akkadian rule. Sargon's empire became the world's first real bureaucracy, with a postal system to maintain communication, paved roads to enable troop movements and commerce, and massive irrigation projects that boosted agriculture and sustained growing populations, turning Mesopotamia into the jewel of the ancient world. He famously claimed to have ruled the four corners of the universe, his domain stretching from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea, and while these claims were likely exaggerated, there's no doubt that his empire was the most expansive and advanced the world had seen at the time. Yet, even as he built greatness, opposition never ceased, and Sargon was forced to suppress numerous revolts, as local rulers and factions continuously challenged his authority, proving that even the strongest emperors are never free from the burdens of power. Despite this, he reigned for an incredible 56 years, eventually dying of natural causes around 2279 BC, leaving behind a legacy of conquest, innovation, and imperial unity. His son Rimush inherited the throne but was assassinated after 9 years, leading to the rule of his brother Manishtushu, and while the Akkadian Empire endured for roughly another century, it eventually collapsed under the strain of internal dissent and external invasion, particularly by the Gutians around 2150 BC, nomadic mountain tribes who overran Sumer and brought a temporary end to centralized rule. However, Sargon's legacy outlived his empire, immortalized in the writings of later civilizations such as the Assyrians and Babylonians, who revered him as the ideal king, a semi-divine figure whose rise from obscurity to absolute power embodied the ultimate triumph of destiny. His story, whether historical or partially mythological, continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and dreamers alike, standing as the original blueprint for empire, a tale of humble beginnings, divine providence, ruthless ambition, and lasting greatness. Sargon of Akkad was not just a king, he was the dawn of empire itself. Like, subscribe, and tap the bell icon for more powerful journeys into the past. Thank you.